Phil Méheux.
Hi there.
So how does it feel?
Are we live? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. How does it feel seeing it?
I thought it was a bit bright.
After all this time. A bit bright.
It seemed a bit bright to me, but never mind.
It's quite a dark film.
Modern technology.
It's got the feeling of a dark film.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was interesting seeing it again because that was like very early in my career. It was about my second year of being freelance.
Yeah.
And when you see those films from that period, you think, if I could have another go at that, I could probably do it a bit better. But that's what I was feeling watching it and thinking,
What you would change.
that light was in a different place. Maybe that couldn't have been so bright. And
it's all part of the learning, I suppose, isn't it?
but it's done now. It's in a can now, isn't it?
But what a classic. I mean, it's grown into... Had you any idea at the time you were shooting, any inkling that it was going to become the thing that it's become?
No, not really. I mean, interesting thing was that it was made by ITC, which was a television company, with Lou Grade's television company. And when I was approached about it, they thought it would be a film for TV, like a play for today sort of thing. And interesting story about it was that I knew John Mackenzie from the BBC, where I've been a staff cameraman. And we were both, John was a freelance director anyway, and I was a staff cameraman, but I left the BBC to become freelance, and he asked me about this movie. And originally I was hoping to do something a bit bigger. We always have these aspirations. And at the time they asked me to do this, which was for TV, I was also asked to do something else, which was a CinemaScope, big CinemaScope feature. And I was like undecided which one to do, because I was wanting to sort of climb up the ladder. And eventually the other thing fell through, and this was left. And then talking about it, it sort of started developing, and the script was very good, and the script got altered a bit. And then once we started doing it, we felt it could be more suited to a cinema film. So
this is whilst you were shooting, during the shoot? Or?
At the very beginning, yeah. There was a feeling about it. I don't know how you get these feelings and where it comes from, but there was a feeling about it. And we actually shot it in 1:66:1 and also 1:85:1 because we didn't know where it would actually end up. And as we know, it ended up in the cinema. But as we went along, it was going to be a feature film, also the subject matter, the violence in it, and all those sort of things.
But also perhaps in the way, the style in which it was put together, like the film grammar, as it were. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of those Alan Clark films from around about the same time.
He was after us,
like Scum and stuff like that, where films that were initially sort of made for TV, but somehow were much bigger than the sum of their parts, in the sense that this very much has that feeling, visually as well as the performance style and all of those things. So at some point during the shoot, you felt, actually this is...
Well, I think, any cameraman takes a job on, you think, I'm going to do the best with this I can, and therefore you think, how can I wanted to be I wanted to make films for the cinema. I started in BBC television, but I wanted to make films for the cinema. So when I approached anything, I saw it as a bigger canvas, whether it was on TV or not. I saw it as a much bigger canvas, with camera moves, with cranes and all sorts of things. By the way, there's no Steadicam in that. If you think there is no Steadicam in that film. So.
There's some wonderful visual moments as well in terms of like cinematic storytelling, what you were talking about. For example, like one thing that comes to mind is that the moment where Bob Hoskins' character finally finds out that, or he's finally told that it's the IRA, essentially.
Yes.
But it's done in two very long shots. So you've got you've got the police officer approaching him from a great distance, and you've got Harry right in a great distance, and so it's sort of like
we approach them both.
Approaching both like that, but making them feel very small characters. And up until this point, you've been like, I think there was the scene exactly prior to that in the lift, which completely juxtaposed it with that very sort of claustrophobic moment where, I mean, of all the things you could have said to her.
The scene in the abattoir where he found out the IRA, it's like opening a Christmas present, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're working your way through all the layers, and eventually you find the centre.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, not televisual at all. Very much a cinematic.
Well, I never thought. I mean, whatever I did, I never thought in terms of television. I thought in terms of images and cinema. I mean, my background, my feeling was always cinema.
So you'd worked with John a few times prior to this film.
I did a play with him. I don't know if you remember, but in the 70s, there was this. These two cameras came on the set: the BL, the 60mm BL, and the Eclair. And it was thought you could actually make complete films with them in the BBC format. In other words, with low budget and 16mm, you could actually make films with them. And a lot of directors saw that as an opportunity to make what they really wanted to make, which was feature films. And all the directors wanted to do it. And John had the script for Just Another Saturday, which was written by a Scottish writer. And he wanted, I mean, you couldn't do it as a TV show because it was mostly outdoors. It was an orange march through Glasgow and all the violence that this created and scenes in a pub and knife fights on the street and all that sort of thing, which in those days the TV cameras couldn't get out of the studio. They were huge, great things and they went on great big bases. So this was the best way of doing it. And you had producers there who took this on board and realized that this was another way of making really great television. So I did this film with John and we got on like a house on fire. And what we formed, which I don't know how anybody else works, but what John and I formed was a partnership in terms of performance as well as camera angle and whatever. There was no such thing as video assist when we did this. And so I would always report back to him if I felt that something wasn't right or if the performance was not on the right level,
so a great
something
deal of
was
trust.
not working.
Yeah.
I would just whisper in John's ear, and he trusted me, and I trusted him, and the way he approached the camera angles and everything. So we had a great partnership, and we did quite a lot of stuff together.
So by the time you came to shoot Long Good Friday, you obviously worked wonderful.
Yeah, we did.
Very
We've
well
done
as a team.
about. We did 3 television plays together, which were all on film, and I did also a short film for the COI, which was about safety on farms, which won a prize at the Paris Film Festival for Youth in 1978. So
Safety on farms.
He was a good director, John. He was an actor originally, but he was one of those people that were really organised, and he had a great way of handling actors, I thought.
So between the pair of you, so he's very good with actors. You're obviously supplying the visual element, as it were. How did that manifest itself on set? So, for example, with was this Bob's first movie? Or?
It was Bob's first. Yeah, he'd done some TV shows. He'd actually been in a children's television show about reading. When he played a lorry driver. That's all I remember. And he was like, talking like that, got to read like that, it goes like that, the words go like that. And that's about the first thing I saw him in. But that was, the first big break for him.
Because there's something very physical about his performance, I think. I mean, it seems, even when he stood incredibly still, you just know, like this, again, the scene where Jeff comes in and he knows and Jeff knows. And it's all
That's
over
one of the best scenes in the movie.
Fantastic,
it always catches me every time I see it.
But his posture and everything else is just it's beautifully framed, because you really sense what's going to happen. You slowly work your way in.
Yeah.
So obviously between yourself, John, and the actors, you formulated that or choreographed.
Well, with Bob, I mean, he was an intuitive actor. He was an animal actor, if you like. It all came from inside him. He wasn't very technical. I don't think he'd done any stage work or very little stage work. So it came from inside. And I know he was very short-sighted and he would wear glasses in between shots. And sometimes we'd do a take, and I'm going to stand up, guys. He'd do a take. And at the end of the take, he'd go, "Am I my mark?" And like that. And he'd bend right down to see if his feet were on it. Then after a while, we sort of helped him out. And we didn't actually use marks because we found he sort of worked his way to the right place every time. And you just felt he was totally in the moment. He was never really aware of the camera, so we were able. I just lit it and we just talked about it, and I had a very good focus point of Dave Shillingford, and just let him go. Really, just let him do it. That was the best way to capture him.
And it feels like that as well, with his performance and the way it's been photographed. It almost, in the sense, like similarly to the Alan Clark films, that you don't. There's a real sense of unpredictability about it.
Yes.
So you never know what's coming next,
Yeah.
even though somehow it's tied together beautifully as well.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, his performance is definitely sort of right at the forefront of that.
Oh yeah, and
really
that's what carries that film. I think is that animal magnetism from Bob.
But also this kind of world collapsing around him.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you a little bit about that, actually, the locations and stuff. So, I mean, fantastic chance you got to shoot down on the docks before it was redeveloped.
It's all Canary Wharf now.
All Canary Wharf.
All there's bankers walking around with,
it's incredible.
Black credit cards.
It's incredible to think that landscape's changed. But I think as well, it's like, again, visually, you there's a real sort of, you create a real world. I mean, there's such scope to it, but somehow a great sort of sense of claustrophobia.
It's a fabulous location when you think about it. All those cranes and all that. And an empty space. I mean, nobody there.
It almost feels like a Western in some ways. You know, with his boat in the middle of, you know, the sort of boat surrounded by nothing.
Yeah.
You know, kind of the homestead or whatever.
Yeah.
It's great. And then, so you're shooting down there on the docks. You've got Helen Mirren, who's in this, again, I think, absolutely fantastic performance. But I heard somewhere that originally she pushed for her part.
Well, she was she was scripted as a gangster's mole, basically. And she said that she would be interested in doing it if the part would be expanded and made stronger.
Yeah.
And she claims that in the beginning it wasn't, and therefore she had to fight for it. But Helen was an interesting choice, but also she could be difficult at times because she was determined that it wasn't going to be. She didn't want to be the gangster's mole. She wanted to be a forceful character. Mm. And there was this scene when they're on the bed with the mirror behind, and John said to her when we were setting it up, you know, well, Bob, you're still in bed. I think, Helen, you've got up and made a cup of tea for him or something. And she said, John, I've never made a cup of tea for a man in my life. So there was a little frisson there, but we got around it. And so that was interesting. But I think it made something more of her and it became part of her performance.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you know, I see it as a sort of two-hander, really. I mean, there's a great strength in their unity, yes. I suppose.
Yeah.
And then it sort of helps you see, you know, the sort of flaws in his character as well, which is fantastic. Really fantastic.
Well, he's a bludgeon, isn't he, really? I mean, he's going to force his way through. He's not going to think it out. He's just going to battle his way through.
I mean, she's almost too smart for him in some ways, you know. But she kind of pities him.
So what does she see in him, I wonder? Was it the money? Was it the power?
Perhaps Who knows? So, yeah, I mean, absolutely fantastic piece. I wondered if, before, I've got a couple more questions, but maybe I just wanted to throw it out for a minute if anybody's got anything they want to ask at this point.
James.
Hello, Sam. Just elaborating on what you were saying about sort of the Bob being quite an animalistic actor and things like that. It's a great example, and it comes through on the screen as far as the camera just being in the right place. And there's a tendency these days, at least from what I feel, there's a lot of sort of getting the camera tight and on the eye line for certain moments and for certain lines to really kind of, you know, drum it down the audience's sort of mouth. But it's a wonderful, wonderful example of just how putting the camera in the right place and just letting the actors do their thing. And sometimes holding a 3-shot or a 2-shot or just simply playing it. Was that something that, while she was shooting, was a sort of a very much a preconceived thing, or did you shoot a bit more coverage, or how was it designed? Was it on set or more in the edit, or just... You know,
well, there was very little coverage. John doesn't do a lot of coverage. He knows what he wants from the scene. I mean, it's 35 years ago, so I can't remember who said what. And any particular sequence, but a lot of things worked well in one go. A lot of things needed more attention. I mean, apart from the obvious things like Eddie Constantine. I mean, the man's been in a lot of French films like Alphaville and whatever, but he's never spoken live on camera. He's always dubbed by a Frenchman. So the guy's never had to act before. So that was a revelation. So the part was actually given to Anthony Franciosa, and who came to England to meet everybody. And then the producer met him at the Dorchester Hotel a week before we were going to shoot. And he said, we've rewritten the script slightly. And Franciosa read it, got on a plane and went back to New York. He said, I'm not doing it. So there we were 1 week before shooting, and you know, had to find that Eddie Constantine. But getting back to your point, it's part of John's approach. He's very much with the actors. The photography part of it is second to him, but that's then my job to actually stand in front and say, I can do this better for you, and I can, and that's why John and I got on so well, because he'd stage it, and I'd say, shouldn't we be there and not here? And he would see that straight away. The scene, for instance, where Bob comes out of the boat, and I was standing on a crane with the handheld camera, and I get off at the bottom, obviously, and then I follow him all the way to the car. That was just that was one take. And I don't know if we'd rehearsed it, we probably did, but that came from part of my documentary background. Because in documentaries, as you know, those of you that shoot documentaries, that you don't know what's going to happen next, and therefore you have to make it up as you go along. So you have to understand what the film is about, what the scene is about. And I did the best I could, and when Helen went down to the ground, that wasn't rehearsed. I mean, so you've got to go with it. And then when I don't know if you remember when there's a foreshot, and then she starts to get quieter and quieter, and Bob starts to realise, and I felt, while I was looking through, that we shouldn't really be on Bob's face for that. So the only thing I could do was then shift sideways to get him into frame. And it sort of worked. And at the end of that, John said, well, I don't think we need to do that again. So that was in one take. But other times we would do more than one take,
This is the scene where he comes, after he's killed Jeff,
After he's killed Jeff,
he comes out.
He comes down the gangplank and runs and walks to the car.
Because just preceding that, when he enters the boat, you cut to this handheld shot, and you go through the entire boat. It's the first time that anything like that really feels like it's happened. I'm sure it did during the film, but you really sense this kind of tension.
Well, that was the reason for doing it. To be with Bob all through that one thing. That was the 2C Arri, by the way, which is that old famous German camera that it doesn't attach to your body, so you can just hold it here, and you can get such fabulous shots with it. No one ever uses it anymore. No. Well, it makes a noise, and that's the problem.
It's like a 35mm Super 8 camera, isn't it? Sort of you hold it.
Yeah, it's 35mm, 400-foot loading, and you can just walk with it. And
but what's great about that is that, again, coming from your documentary background, there you are with Bob going through the boat. I mean, it's that sense of like, what's he going to do? Is he just going to lose it right this second, or is he going to wait? And then you. Well,
you have to make your mind. Well, I mean, there was a rehearsal of that, obviously. We worked out what he was going to do. What amazes me when I see it now is that I was pulling focus and adjusting the aperture as well as hand holding it. And I think, how did I ever do that? But obviously I did.
Fantastic.
I mean, I can see one stop pull as he comes up the stairs, but as he comes up the gangplank. But
and then, of course, there's the, on your point there, there's the scene where they're at the docks, they're checking out the Rolls Royce that's been blown up, and he has that long talk with the police officer. And again, all in one. It reminded me a little bit of there's that scene in Jaws. I think, in fact, there are several scenes in Jaws like that. But that sort of really kind of like just holding a scene, watching them, allowing them to do their thing. I mean, there's no reason to go anywhere else. And there's a sort of
John's. What else would you do? Just track singles on them, and I think
there's a great confidence in that. It feels, and I think that's what gives it its sort of real, sort of unique.
Well, that was out the back of a hatchback car being pushed by the grips down the
So there's
concrete.
a lot of ADR in this movie then?
No, there's very little. I mean, that was real sound.
Right, okay.
I don't know who noticed when, after Helen tried to stop him getting into the car, did you notice the boom in the window of the car? Yeah.
I was looking for it, I could tell the angle.
And at the time, I might have noticed that. I don't remember now, but and then John Poddy said, well, don't worry, fuck that. It's a good shot, we'll have it, And these days, you could paint it out probably, but...
Yeah. Anyone else?
James, you're going to add something to that?
No, I was going to ask purely technically, not artistically, that shot, about how did you do it, but you answered it as far as you were operating, pulling your own focus and your own cameras. Because, you can see the corridors. I mean, it was...
Well, the 2C Arri has ears on the lenses, so... But it's hard to do the aperture as well, I have to tell you. Yeah. And I don't remember how I did it even. I mean, because how can you take both hands off, but... Gavin?
Yeah, I understand this was a remaster that you were working on,
Yeah.
the original. Did you? I mean, it looks very true to the original, as far as I remember. Were you tempted at all to bring your knowledge back to it and tweak the grade or add a shape?
No, I made a conscious decision to leave it as it was. And all I did was actually doctor a few things that didn't work so well. The scene where Harold Shan's giving the speech on the back of the boat and you've got the Tower Bridge behind him. When I shot that, the daylight went really low. I mean, it got cloudier and cloudier and cloudier. And on film, you can see it. And I thought, well, at least I can fix that. So I just windowed him and then took everything brighter as we went through the shot. But mostly I did very little.
Again, a fantastically shot scene because you've got, there he is, this, like his big speech about London, about how it's going to change, and he's going to be at the forefront of that, and everyone else is going to be on, you know, literally on the same boat as him. Fantastic. And then you've got Tower Bridge in the back, which is slowly, you know, London expanding as he. I think it was really.
And it was in July, in August, I think. But I mean, the worst bloody weather you could ever hope for.
Of course, always. And one other question, because I'm brilliant to see it again. Is that last shot on Bob Hoskins?
Yeah, in the back of the car.
Was that scripted, or was that just something that you found at the end of the movie?
I've got the script at home, so I should maybe look it up. All I remember is this. We took the passenger seat out and put the camera in there. I operated it because I said, well, you know, I had Mike Proudfoot operate, who's a very good operator, but I said, look, I think I ought to be with this in case something funny happens. It was wide open. It was Cook S2, so it would have been 2.3 or something. And I had a 100-watt light bulb on the top of the matte box, which was plugged into the cigarette lighter. And the director drove the car and directed Bob through the whole scene. And he said, oh, now you're upset, now you think you've got them, now you're not, now they've got you, now you're losing it. Oh, blah, blah. And he was like driving down, and I thought, you're going to go crash. But he goes, because I'm like this with the camera, right? You know, BL, 1,000-foot load, stuck in the passenger seat. And he's driving us down the Strand, all the way around Trafalgar Square and back up the Strand again. So.
That's one of the great moments.
It's magnificent. I mean, it's what this shot everyone remembers.
Yeah. He talks him through the movie, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I mean, it wasn't scripted, so I think that's.
Was it also one of the first things that I read somewhere that Bob Hoskins said it was one of the first things that you shot? Is that right or not?
No.
Maybe that was he just made that up.
No, it's towards the end.
Right. Okay.
It was Savoy. All I remember about that shoot was that Mike Proudfoot said, "Let's have a champagne breakfast in the Savoy when we finish." So we did, and they'd run out of champagne. Can you believe it? He said, no, it all went last night, the guy said. Oh, bloody hell. So we just had bacon and egg in the Savoy.
Anyone else?
Albert.
I was just thinking about the style of the film that you started off with, because obviously it's got this sort of same sort of style that you have. But I remember you talking about, I think it was the Bond film, when you started off and tried to get it all sort of black and white and have it sort of gritty and that sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
Now, this one had its own style, but I wondered where you took the style, or whether you had ideas of pictures or photographs or something that would give you the overall feel of the film. Because obviously every cameraman does it.
Yeah.
And the director, of course.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up, because I'm one of the few cameramen who never does it.
Really?
I never look at photographs, paintings, or anything. It's all in here.
Do you read the script?
And I read the script. Sorry? What was that?
Do you read the script?
I read the script. Well, Davey Watkin always said he reads it once and throws it away. I read the script. I read the script and then work in my head what I think the story's about, what it should look like. And of course, I'm pulling on all those films I've ever seen and all those photographs I've ever seen, Bill Brandt and all those people. You know, all those are in my head. And only if on one occasion the director asked me if I could show him what I think it should look like, and I had to then go home and find this stuff and say I think it should look like this, like those. But usually it's just in my head.
But you did a Dixon with very wide-angle lenses, didn't you?
Yeah.
And that was unusual as well.
Yeah.
So,
Just occurred to me to do that.
I use all the wide-angle distance.
Yeah. Well, I think I get a sense of the drama, what it's about, and it comes to me somehow. I mean, it sounds sort of poncy saying that, but I mean, it just...
And Zorro was really very bright.
Gosh, you've seen all my films, haven't you?
Well, I follow you. I'm
Bit of a fan.
my hero.
Well, Zorro, I mean, the Mask of Zorro, I mean, it was my decision to make it look like an old Technicolor Western.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And that came out of my head. I didn't sit and watch a Technicolor Western and think, I want to make it look like that.
But I wonder where that sort of style's come from. There's something in your upbringing or something like that that's brought
It's just watching a load of films.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got 900 DVDs at home.
Yeah, the script.
And you just, sometimes you refer to stuff, but I find it can deviate you from, you find something that doesn't quite fit, and you're trying to work around something that doesn't fit. And I find it easier to absorb the script and what it's about, watch the actors if they rehearse, watch them, and that changes a lot of things,
So you start with a good foundation in your head, it's like you've got.
Yeah, I mean, I do talk to the director. Obviously, he may have specific. I mean, I've done 9 films with Martin Campbell, but I mean, we never used to say very much to each other, and unless I was puzzled by something. I mean, the black and white scene in Casino Royale, I don't know who came up with that actually, but it was a thought that we were going back in time before he became 007, and it was trying to make it look different because of that. And I think black and white just came out of these discussions, and the graininess and all that stuff was like to make it look completely different. And the first colour is the blood running down the gun barrel once he fires, where all those people sitting in the audience going, "Oh, but it's not in black and white." Yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah. And you committed to that? Didn't you shot that on XX?
Yeah, XX. Yeah.
So there was no.
Which is very variable now. I mean, they make it to special order. So you have to make sure it's actually the same speed even. But the problem I had with that was that the costume department didn't understand black and white film. And I said, whatever you do, don't put them in black, like his jeans or something. And they had, or my trousers, they had an overcoat. He was in a black overcoat. And I said, well, don't put him in a black overcoat. I'll never see it. So they said, we've done it, we've got something for you. Okay, great. And it was a dark blue overcoat. So I put a 5K on his coat and a 1K on his face. And you still can't, you always hear the buttons, I think, in the film.
So would you say there's a sort of consistency in your head, in your style, when you approach each film?
Yeah,
for example,
it locks in.
Different to
and I can't explain it really, but it just locks in. I automatically put the camera and choose the lens where I think that's right for what's in my head. Now, a director may come along and say, I want it tighter or wider. Then I have to maybe just rethink slightly, but there's a format in there somehow.
But as you would, for example, as a documentary cameraman, select your tools, knowing that you've got.
Well, you do as a documentary camera. You don't select your tools. You've got your camera and you've got your film stock, and then the rest is up to you. But what you learn from documentary work is you don't know what anyone's going to do, so you have to make your mind up while you actually shooting it. Also, you have to build in mind what the editor's going to need to make it cut. He's going to need a cutaway for something, so you've got to bear all that in mind. And that teaches you a lot about film construction, which you can then take onto a dramatic set and use that. Often I say to, very well-known directors, I say, shouldn't we have a shot of that on the floor? And they go, I don't think we need it. And I say, well, I think we do, And of course, in the cut, there it is, because there are some things that you do need.
Yeah. Except when you're doing those long 2-shot takes, those walk and talks, you don't need anything.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Anybody else?
Yes. How did you do
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
How did you do the shot in the abattoir upside down?
Mike Proudfoot, we hung Mike Proudfoot upside down. I was going to do it actually, because in my early years I was known for my handheld work. And John looked at me and said, well, I looked at John and said, you know what we need? We need an upside down shot. But the costume didn't fit me because I was 6'1" and Mike's down here somewhere. So the costume fit Mike and the shoes and everything. So Mike did it. Albert.
One more question. Sorry.
No.
In doing this, do you feel this was the Phil Méheux legacy movie?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean,
it revisits your past and therefore.
I mean, you every film you want to make a statement, don't you? You want every film to be successful. You think this is going to be my best work, and then when you've done it, you go, oh shit, maybe the next one will be my best work. And that's how you get through life, is actually looking for the next one. So no, we had no idea. I mean, Lou Grade was alarmed that he'd made a film about the IRA. What do you mean I made a film about the IRA? Get rid of it, get rid of it. And so they sold it to Handmade. They shot it for £600,000 and they sold it for £850,000 to Handmade. And even Handmade were upset that it was about the IRA, but by then they bought it. But the big champion of the film was Barry Norman was the big champion of the film. And they sort of grew from there, but it didn't open until a year later. It sort of went bink bonk, bink bonk.
So politically, again, there was it was still a very touchy subject.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. In the late 70s, I think that was still going on.
But presumably Lou had read the script, right? He knew what was...
Nah, he hadn't read the script.
Yeah, he didn't.
And that's you need. That's how Lou worked, you know.
Or George Harrison, when he bought it at Handmade, presumably he read it, or he'd seen the
presumably
movie,
he hadn't
right?
seen it. I mean, I only read this recently that they weren't too happy with it either. But who knows if that's true? You know. Unfortunately, we can't ask George now, but...
Do you think it was, I don't know, watching it this evening, I was thinking maybe actually the reason Lou didn't like it or was afraid of it was perhaps that it's kind of different, you know, it stands out in a sense. But
maybe
that's
maybe,
not
yeah.
you know, on his
Who
character.
knows? Maybe they were frightened that someone would bomb their houses because they bought it, you know? I don't know. It never occurred to us making it.
But again, I suppose it doesn't, politically, it doesn't really talk about, you know, the IRA in that sense. It's more about that sort of shift, I suppose, isn't it, between the old and the new, and how, you know, Bob represents that sort of old style, and he's very kind of proud of his traditions,
Yeah.
all of that.
As a character, you mean?
As a character, yeah. And then all of that being
I
sort
don't
of
know.
pushed
Do
aside.
distributors look at it in that light? I don't know.
Probably not, no.
They just want to see if it's going to make any money, don't they?
Yeah.
They wanted to revoice Bob, by the way. I mean, none of you had trouble with his voice, I'm sure, but the Americans wanted to redub him because they said they can't understand what he's saying. It's like one of them silent, deadly farts, isn't it? Nothing, and then you go cross-eyed. I mean, great lines, and only Bob could actually come out with it.
Anyone else on Bob's lines?
Question. Sorry to hog the questions, but with the Americans having a major influence here, do you feel that with your, with working in America with them, that the Americans are beginning to sort of have too much of an influence on the products that we produce here? I mean, that film started off with a whole lot of the audience having to work at the film, trying to work out what was going on, whereas the Americans like to have it more or less laid out on a plate. And I wonder whether you feel that there's a danger that they might be having too much of an influence. I know somebody who worked on The Other Berlin Girl, and there was a meeting, but there was a meeting saying, did Anne Boleyn have to have her head cut off at the end?
Yes. No, I think it's true. I think it's true.
I think it's a fair point. It's a fair point.
I mean,
Does it have to happen?
let's put it this way: the common denominator in America is lower than the common denominator in Europe, I think. And all the most interesting films are made in Europe; they're not made in America. America's about business; it's about product, and it's about business, and they're very good at that. And they make a picture for $200 million, and it makes $1.5 billion in return. So that's what they're good at. And this film, who knows what figures it made, but I doubt if it made a fortune. It probably got its cost back, but that's about it, I would think.
But accumulatively, maybe over the years, because of its cult
Yeah, but I
status.
mean, it's interesting. They're talking of reissuing, showing this in the West End again, reissuing it. Be interested to see if anybody goes. Be interested to see if there's a big audience for it, or whether the new modern people, will they remember it, or will they know of it even?
I mean, I sense that it's one of those films that it's certainly something, that...
Yeah, but you guys,
Whenever you talk about it,
most of you
people know
people
about
here
it.
have sort of grown up with it a bit. But
Yeah, I suppose. But it's also, it's sort of one of those great movies that's laid the foundations for that kind of British gangster genre, but it's, in a sense, it's much more than that. But it's, it's always revered as the sort of one of the masterpieces of that genre.
Well, I can't think of many other British gangster films, actually, unless you go to Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels and on from there.
Yeah,
which
or
is
perhaps
completely
Get
different.
Carter, maybe.
Yeah,
would be
different
the other.
style, different format.
Yeah.
And very good, too. I mean, Lock, Stock, I thought it was a great movie. And
Oh, this is better. Anyone else?
yes.
Hello, this might be a ludicrous question, but I'm going to go for it anyway. All right.
Go for it.
Okay. There was really strong music in it, so I wondered did you know that what scenes would be like completely entrenched in music, And
No.
did that affect the way you lit? Oh, right then.
It's all silent when I'm doing it.
Oh, okay, so you didn't.
I've no idea what the music's like. And very often the music isn't even considered until it's cut. And I think Francis Monkman did an amazing job, and it's very iconic, that music. And it's identified with that film so much.
Yeah.
But when we shoot films, I mean, half the time, unless you're using classical music, I mean, I was introduced to classical music years ago when I was doing a documentary about an opera singer called Kathleen Ferrier for BBC Television. I was operating, the cameraman was Jeff Mulligan. Does anyone know Jeff Mulligan around here? Albert might have done, but... And we were in the Lake District, and I said to the director, what speed do you want to zoom out? How do you want to zoom out from this mountain? The sun was coming over the horizon. I said, as the sun appears, how do you want me to zoom out? And he said, well, with the music, why don't we play the music for you? And it was Richard Strauss piece called Das Lied von der Erde. And I said, and after I, and of course you feel that music. It's what I'm saying. It's in your head. You feel it, and I knew exactly what speed the zoom should be. And from then on, I went and bought that record because it had such an effect. And ever since cinema's been around, music has accompanied the pictures, except perhaps in Nickelodeon days when they were just silly little comedies. But there was always an orchestra. Birth of a Nation was, there was a huge orchestra played with it in New York, and so music and pictures go together extremely well, I think.
As they do in this.
Did that sort of answer?
Well, it's sort of then the music was just there supporting you then, so that's great.
Yeah.
I just wondered if that had effect.
No, I had no idea what. Yeah. And it's interesting when you see films with very strong music that is to imagine that when they shot it, completely silent. Or in Bob's case in the car, the director screaming at him, "Now you're upset. Now you think you can survive. No, you can't survive. No, you can't get out. You're going to go home. She's going to kill you." Blah blah blah. All that is being screamed at him. But you see it with music. But that's the magic of cinema.
I'm gonna have to stop you there because I'm getting it in the neck over here.
Getting signed from the back.
So
I'm just going to. Can I leave them on one before you finish?
Do it.
Time Out said a very interesting gangster film marred by the indifferent photography. I leave you on that note. Filmmaking.